and to a party which didn't nominate today, but it did decide the ultimate outcome. Simon Hamilton of the DUP is here. Yes, an agreement between yourselves and Sinn Féin not to nominate from your own parties meant that David Ford was always likely to get this post, wasn't he?
Well, certainly there was a process that had been put in place. Legislation was passed pre-Christmas to ensure a cross-community vote rather than the hunt be used to allocate this position. And we always thought that we were no advocates for the hunt, as you would know, Jim. We were quite happy to see the Assembly move away from the hunt for allocating ministerial office. We see that as a first step towards doing that for all ministerial positions. And I think we believe that having cross-community support and having a vote which required both Unionists and Nationalists to back whatever Justice Minister was going to be put in place, given the great sensitivity that there is surrounding the position of a new Justice Minister, that it was important to have that cross-community vote rather than allocating it via the hunt.
And yet, were you surprised to see the Ulster Unionists put forward a nomination?
Well, nothing with the Ulster Unionist Party surprises me these days. I think the one person who did seem to be surprised was Margaret Ritchie. Seemed to indicate from her comments that there was some sort of a deal between herself and her party and the SDLP and the Ulster Unionist Party to back the SDLP's nominee, and that deal seems to have gone as awry as the deal that the Ulster Unionist Party currently have with the Conservative Party.
Okay, well, we'll leave some of that out for now. Let's stick to policing and justice. David Ford, what makes him a good candidate?
Well, I think David Ford comes across as to everybody in Northern Ireland as I certainly, in my dealings with him up close in Stormont, he's somebody who I would respect. I respect his ability. He always has a careful manner about him. He doesn't seem to rush headlong into anything. I think given the sensitivity that there is in this position, it does require somebody who is thoughtful and does take their time about making decisions. And I mean, this is a very sensitive post. And I think David certainly comes with the qualifications from his background and also his time in politics in the Assembly to be, I think, a good Justice Minister. I think that we will all be keeping a mindful eye on all ministers as we do, and we will be a critical friend whenever we are required to be.
But both the Ulster Unionists and the SDLP would say that you constructed this system for appointing a Justice Minister purely in order to ensure that you didn't give a leg up to either of your immediate electoral rivals, and in a way you had this perfect system of sort of blaming it on the other side, so the DUP could veto the SDLP and Sinn Féin could veto the Ulster Unionists.
Well, ultimately, we now have a Justice Minister who has the support of the vast majority of Northern Ireland's people as represented by their MLAs at Stormont. And I'm not surprised at the sort of petty political point scoring that's going on by the SDLP and by the UUP today. I mean, here's a day whenever most people in Northern Ireland woke up to the news that the whole political institutions, the whole process has been under attack from the bomb that went off at Palace Barracks in Hollywood. And people, the vast majority of people in Northern Ireland want to continue to move forward. And today's step of appointing a Justice Minister was an important part of that. And I think that people out there want to see us continue to make progress, to continue to build on the progress that we've already made, and not to go back to this sort of bickering, and particularly whenever the whole of Northern Ireland society, the stability and the peace that we have ingrained in our society is so clearly under attack.
But does it make any difference to that battle against dissident Republicans? I mean, on the one hand, you have the likes of Sean Woodward saying it's very important that this goes forward, it will make a difference in terms of marginalising dissident Republicans, but your own party members in the run-up to taking the decision in the Hillsborough talks rubbished that. Gregory Campbell would say this is nonsense, dissident Republicans will do what they're going to do anyway. Well,
they are, but I think what they, and sadly they are, and they seem to be, they continue to be active and dangerously so. But what I think having justice powers in Northern Ireland, of course, it's worth pointing out the operational independence of both the Chief Constable and the courts in this, but I think having that political push behind all of this, having a Stormont, an Assembly in place and an executive that is so representative of all of the community in Northern Ireland, that so, I would have thought, wants to continue to make progress, I think is something that is helpful in sending out the right signals to our community, and particularly to those who would damage what we're doing, that we will not be bullied, will not be banned, and will not be bowed by what's going on out there.
And what you've been saying, though, about David Ford effectively being a safe pair of hands suggests that the DUP approach to this is to take things gently, not to have big changes in justice, not to look for massive legislation in the early days.
No, well, I think there will be. I've spoken before about the need to make change in respect of our justice system. I don't think that change was ever going to come particularly through direct rule. We've seen that with the other departments that have been devolved. There was no real appetite, no desire on the behalf of direct rule ministers to make significant change within their departments, to really take things forward. And I think there are a lot of issues, legal aid, prison reform, probation, things like that. There are lots of, a whole panoply of issues in which there is a need for change. And I think we do need to see that. But I mean, like everything in this system that we have, it will have to be changed that is acceptable to everybody. And I think that's something that David will be able to help guide us forward on. And I think every party should get their shoulder to the wheel and try to progress that change that is required.
Okay. Simon Hamble, many thanks.